You know, when we think of amazing wine, our minds usually go to this romantic place, right? A sun soaked hill, these ancient gnarled vines. We have this whole story in our heads about art, tradition, and that special sense of place we call terroir. And part of that story is that the best vines suffer. We picture them struggling for every single drop of water, pouring all their energy into just a few perfect, concentrated grapes. But what if that beautiful story about the thirsty vine isn't the whole story? What if modern science has a slightly different take? Well, here's where it gets interesting. This quote right here really flips that old romantic idea on its head. Modern science is showing us that irrigation, far from being some kind of cheat, can actually be the key to unlocking both more grapes and higher quality grapes. So, yeah, that leads us right into what we could call the great irrigation myth. Let's look at how we went from seeing the grapevine as this hardy, rain-fed plant to using water as this incredibly precise, almost surgical tool. Look, historically, it's true. Grapevines are amazingly tough and drought-resistant. But what we figured out is that even in those classic hot, dry climates, giving the vines just a little bit of water at exactly the right time, well, it does more than just boost the harvest. It helps create the balanced, complex, high-quality wines that we all want to drink. It's not about just surviving anymore, it's all about thriving. Okay, so to really get how this works, we need to understand how a vine actually drinks. And trust me, it's not as simple as it rains, the roots soak it up. There's some really cool science going on right there in the soil. The most important idea to wrap your head around is usable water. I want you to think of the soil like a giant sponge. The only water that actually matters to the vine is the water its roots can physically pull out of that sponge. And not all the water in that sponge is the same. On one side, you've got what the vine can actually drink, the good stuff. But then there's this other water that is bound so tightly to the little particles of soil that no matter how hard the roots try, they just can't pull it out. It's there, but it's completely locked away. So this brings it all together. You've got field capacity, which is when the soil is totally full, like right after a huge rainstorm. Then you have the wilting point, where the vine just can't get any more water out. And that zone right in the middle, that's the usable water. And managing that sweet spot, that's the entire game of modern irrigation. And this leads us to a really cool concept, the art of good stress. This is where winemaking gets super strategic. See, growers aren't trying to eliminate stress completely. Nope. They're trying to control it, to perfectly manage it, to sculpt the flavor of the final wine. And this just shows you the difference perfectly. On the left, that's a happy, healthy vine. But on the right, that's a vine under some serious water stress. You can see the leaves are drying up, the grapes are shriveling. The goal is to find that perfect middle ground, a little bit of controlled stress that never lets the vine get this damaged. And timing, as they say, is everything. A vine's needs change big time over the season. Early on, it needs a good amount of water to grow. Mid-season is when it's the thirstiest. But then later on, as the grapes start to ripen and change color, that's when the winemakers actually pull back on the water on purpose. That's when a little bit of stress is a really good thing. Because giving the vine too much water, especially late in the game, is a recipe for disaster. You can end up with these big, bloated, watery grapes that have no flavor or concentration. It can mess up the ripening schedule, and all that extra moisture creates a perfect breeding ground for mold and fungus. Not good. So, how much water are we actually talking about here? Well, this is a pretty solid benchmark. For a typical vineyard, a vine needs about 450 millimeters of water total. That's from rain and irrigation combined over the whole year to produce top-quality grapes. It just gives you a sense of the scale of what growers are managing. So how on earth do they manage that 450 millimeters with such incredible control? Well, that's where the modern water toolkit comes in. We're talking about precision irrigation systems that are honestly pretty amazing pieces of technology. And the undisputed champion in the modern vineyard is drip irrigation. It's this brilliant system designed to deliver a tiny, precise amount of water, drop by drop, right to the base of each and every vine. It cuts down on waste and gives the grower maximum control. Now, this might look pretty complex, but this is basically the heart and brain of the whole system. It's called a filtration head, and it's absolutely crucial because those little drippers can get clogged really easily. This whole setup is designed to do one thing: make sure a clean, perfectly controlled trickle of water gets to every single plant. The pros are pretty huge. You get amazing water efficiency, you use less energy, and because you're not spraying water all over the leaves, you get fewer fungal problems. You can even inject nutrients right into the water line. They call it fertigation. But of course, it's not perfect. It costs a lot to set up, and you always have to worry about those lines getting clogged. Okay, so we've talked about the soil, the vine, the technology, but now let's get to the most important part. How does all of this science actually change the wine that ends up in your glass? This is the real impact. The entire goal, the whole point of all this precision, is to create something called a controlled water deficit. By making the vine work just a little bit harder at exactly the right moment, it basically tells the plant, hey, stop growing so many leaves and focus all your energy on ripening these grapes. And the result is a massive concentration of everything we love in wine. And here's exactly how that magic works. That little bit of stress makes the berries smaller. Now, smaller berries mean you have more skin compared to the pulp inside. And the skin is where all the good stuff is. The color, the tannins, so much of the aroma. So you get this incredible concentration of flavor, a perfect balance of sugar and acid, and a bonus. With fewer leaves, the grape clusters get more sunlight. Which really leaves us with this one big, fascinating question. We love to talk about the soil, the sun, the climate, all that stuff we call terroir. But maybe, just maybe, one of the most important secrets to today's greatest wines isn't just a gift from nature, but it's the winemaker's quiet mastery over every single drop of water.